All right, hi everyone. My name is Emily, and I am an alcoholic, and with me is
Elizabeth, and I am an alcoholic.
welcome to the Design for Living Big Book Study. We will be in How It Works on page 70 in the middle of the page. Do you want to start reading?
To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. And, I remember that we're talking about personal relationships here too. Um, and I like how they say we pray for the right ideal and for guidance, because I'm a selfish alcoholic and I want you to like meet my needs. I'm going to pick a partner to meet my needs. And then usually, I was talking about this earlier, I'll pick a partner that isn't very good at doing that. So then I'll go back through page 61 and 63, 62, demanding my way, continuing. So, but if I live by my ideals, right? If I'm living the principles of this program and I pray for the right ideal, and I'm not operating out of selfishness, trying to fix myself from the outside in, I've got a much better chance that I'm going to end up in a better situation in that regard, and I don't know how to not be selfish. I'm terrible. I mean, I'm 59 years old. I can still walk in the kitchen and my partner, could have done yard work all day long, but didn't do the dishes, and he said he'd do the dishes because I did dishes for 20 years and I clean every other part of the house. He never has to scrub the bathroom. He never has, so he said he'd do the dishes. Do I think about the fact that he's probably tired from doing the yard work all day? No, doesn't occur to me at all. It doesn't. And that's my natural default setting. And that's something I have to continue to watch for. So I think about things like, when they say ideals, like what am I talking about? Honesty, responsibility, kindness, love, unselfishness, just add to the list. It's like, if I want to stop being these negative things, I can also think about these positive things. My sponsor had me write out a sex ideal. It's kind of funny. I still have it. It's from 2002. And it still holds true, but you can read it and realize I just got out of a difficult, really, you can read it and go, wow, what was she involved in? And she said to write, what is your ideal relationship? Who is your ideal partner? And who do you need to be in the ideal relationship? What is your relationship from hell? Who is your partner from hell? And who do you need to be to stay in the relationship from hell? And I wrote this thing. I'm happy to email it to anybody who wants to see it. Send me your email address. And I wrote it out, you know. Um, and I like to, really kind of live my life as a balance of inspiration and information. I go and I ask people like, hey, what do you think? Because I can't always, yeah, I pray and ask God for guidance constantly about things. And I need to heed that guidance. And I always go back to that thing that Jim said. He had a vague sense he wasn't being any too smart, right? But he ignored it. It's like, nah, I'll figure it out. I can make this work. And I'm in real danger of that too, especially in romantic situations, because I'm a fixer. So I need to know that, and I need to watch out for that, um, and hopefully have a sane and sound ideal for my future romantic life. Because I'm an alcoholic and I have a deadly disease, and if I live an insane if I live an insane life, I'm going to end up getting drunk. So this is another important thing that I got to look at, and grow up and learn how to be unselfish. I mean, I know my ego's still there. I had an Al-Anon sponsor tell me to say sorry first when I thought it was his fault. Oh my God. Inside, I was like, what? What did you just say? You know? So I know I'm all about myself. It comes up every single day. I can see it in some aspect of my life. And I know how bad I need God to continue to show me how to be so that I don't succumb to my disease and live in the second half of step one and suffer and hopefully not go back to the first half of step one. Go ahead, Emily.
I don't have too much more to add. I didn't really have an issue with the sex problem, but I did have a problem with the selfishness and the self-centeredness. I always made every kind of relationship about me. It was all about me, and I didn't care about anyone else's needs or wants or being there for them or any of that. So this is how I took this aspect of this section of the sex conduct, because I had to look at my relationships, like my parents and my brother and my uncles and everyone else, and my friends. I just had to look at like where was I being selfish with these people, and looking at my wrongs and my motives. And I had to definitely ask God, for help and reveal that to me, because I always want to like focus in on myself and saying, oh well, it was their fault, like shifting the blame, and be, I'm also very codependent as well. So, I definitely struggle with that. But this is where I looked at like my relationships and like what could I do to clear my side of the street. Kind of like an amends, but running it through the columns, for sure, looking at my wrong, and just my self-will, run riot when I was drinking and drugging. Um, I had asked God, where would you have me be? And, how could I be of service? So that's kind of where I was at with this. That's kind of how I looked at it. But I did also do a sex ideal list as well. And I still have it from when I first got sober. And I still look at it every day. And I try to strive to do those things, in my everyday relationships, whether it's a coworker or, my mom or a friend or something. So I think that's also pretty important that, we look at those things every day and we strive to, you know, try to be those things in people's lives. I'll read the next paragraph. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We had begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We had begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill towards all men, even our enemies. For we look on them as sick people. We listed the people we had hurt by our conduct, and we are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you from him. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Yeah, I remember when I was doing my very first fourth step, and I had written like half of a notebook worth of, you know, fears and resentments and my sex conduct and all that. And I was just thinking that that's a lot of stuff, but that's also like 22 years of stuff that was like built up, that I have been dealing with and struggling with. And I like that sentence here. It says, we have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill towards all men, even our enemies, for we look at them as sick people. Yeah, it reminds me of the people that do not have a program. We have to clear our side of the street, and it's about us. Our inventory is ours to take, not the other person's. And it's just very important that we clear our side. And only God can make that possible, because looking at myself, I don't want to look at myself. I am very selfish, self-centered, and I think I'm right. And I would convince you so. And I put other people in harm doing that. So for me to be able to look at, my mistakes, I have definitely realized that I was in the wrong for sure. And God could free me from that if I was brutally honest with God and another human being doing this. Because it is a very intimate step for sure, telling everyone your wrongs and your fears and all that. So um, that's what I believe this paragraph is saying. Because God can do anything possible, and it is above us for sure. All right, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, back to the word futile. I read the definition that I found the other day. It was so funny, right? It says futile, serving no useful purpose, completely ineffective, occupied with trifles. So I'm walking around, you know, she didn't do what I wanted. She didn't smile at me. She didn't, it's amazing how much I was just doing that my whole life, not realizing that was this constant soundtrack of my brain, you know? And I'm just so, I'm so good at self-pity, and so how ineffective is that, right? You feel bad, you're angry. I mean, it's just stupid. No wonder we needed a drink. So I love how it says that, but then it reminds us, yeah, because this is going to lead me back to drinking, and that's fatal. And I'm clear on that. Um, and I love how it says we have begun to learn. Um, I used to, in early sobriety, when somebody would say they prayed for patience, everyone would go, oh no, because that meant you were in every long line, every traffic jam, because they don't, God doesn't give you patience. We're given opportunities to practice patience. And I just mentioned how, I'm always selfish, but I have changed a lot. I find that practicing this, because yeah, the other way doesn't work. But when I can get out of myself and really try this stuff and be patient and be loving and be unselfish and do goodwill for people, have an attitude of goodwill for people, even the people who've hurt me, I am so much happier. My brain is at peace. I have so much more energy. I have so much more ability to connect with you, for example, to like just be in the moment. And it's beautiful. I love it says you're convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. Um, I am not the kind of person that feels like God's just going to come down and wipe it away. It's the act of turning. When I turn to my higher power and I say, okay, over here, I'm upset because I'm not getting what I want and all this stuff's happening. And I turn and I say, God, show me a better way. Show me what I can show up for today. What can I do? And usually something pretty cool happens. Either I'm given an opportunity to do something else, um, you know, or I don't know. I believe that God gives me the opportunity to make these choices if I turn and ask for help. And then I'm not living in that place where I'm thinking about all this other stuff anymore. I'm just not there. I get removed from it. And so that really works for me. I guess they say God steers the bike, but we pedal it. I got to pedal it. He's not just going to come in and zap all this stuff. I got to do something. Um, so if you've already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you've made a good beginning. So that's indicating, yeah, this first time we've done this, the first time we do a 4 and 5, maybe the first time we've ever really looked at ourselves, said, wow. And then that's the beginning because we continue to live this way in 10, 11, and 12. And that's it for me. Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to be on page 72 into action, chapter 6. Okay.
Yay.
Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a great new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. Yeah, this is definitely a big step because you tell your sponsor, and of course God is there, about everything that you have written down, and we definitely are very. I know I was very nervous at first when I was doing this with my sponsor, and I just had to pray and ask God to be with me as I read through everything, and this just reminds me that it's still action. 4 through 9 are action steps. You know, we have to continue to do this every day, you know, because things will crop up. You know, they just don't go away and poof, they're gone. You know, like we have to actually, you know, catch them and write them down. And that's kind of when it brings up step 10, but we'll be in that later. But this is the fifth step. So I definitely like this sentence says this requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. Like that's just being very intimate with another person, and you know, realizing that we do have defects of character, and that's okay. But you know, we strive to work on those daily, and ask God to help, you know, remove them and replace them with healthy, you know, things. And that's all I have for that. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, I just noticed the new attitude and new relationship, emphasizing that. I grew up in a part of the world where it was like you didn't do any work until the fourth step. You didn't even write anything down until the fourth step. And that's just seeing where I'm blocked. The whole idea that I need a new way of life comes in this first step, a thorough first step. So many times I hear people saying, "Oh, I need to do another fourth step." And I think, I bet you need to do another first step, but you need to do it on the second half of the first step, because I need to know, why do I need a new attitude? Why do I need a new relationship? If I'm not clear on that, then I'm only, what does Tebow call it? Compliance. I'm going along with this, but deep down, I don't really believe it, and I'm still running my life. I'm still managing my life. I have to see where I'm not managing well. When they wrote the big book, these guys were gutter drunks, right? They'd been in institutions, they'd been kicked out. I mean, they were really struggling. But today, a lot of us get here with a much higher bottom. But I'm still in pain. I'm still walking around thinking about myself all day, thinking, and that's a painful way to live. So I need to see it so that I know why. And I just want to emphasize that over and over and over again, because it was such a clicking point for me, about 5 years ago. I was like, oh, that's right. I got to be convinced that a life run on self-will can hardly be a success, but I've kind of made it successful to me, it looked successful a lot of the time, because I'm good at ignoring when it's not also. So I can be self-reliant. So I really need to do that. Um, and yeah, and the fourth step isn't about, endless navel gazing or, 3 months worth of writing my life story. It's just to see how I'm blocked. What's blocking me? And I'm going to learn much more about this when I go out and live my life, you know, and run into people that are mean to me that I don't want to be nice to, or whatever it is that day that's got me. Then I'm going to find out where that ego is residing inside of me that needs God to be helped, to get out of that. I'll read the next one. This is perhaps difficult, right?
Yes, correct.
So, page 72, this is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They had only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. And this, I'm 37 years sober, and I'm going to tell you, number one, because of AA and my relationship with God, but number two, I got outside help. And I'm just going to say, it's talking about us being completely thorough. Okay. I came in here with some ideas about my life that actually weren't even true. I mean, I was in denial of some things that happened in my childhood. And I gave everybody a break. Everybody's fine. I get it. They just were young. They couldn't really, but I had this deep well of this core of low self-esteem because my parents weren't able to give me they just weren't. You know, they were young. They didn't whatever. But I needed to get some professional help, and I did. And I'm so grateful because I don't think I would have, but I don't think I'd be sober. I don't think I would have made it. And that's because some of the stuff needed professional help to get me past, you know, I had layers of denial. I was layers and layers. So I just want to make it kind of a little, just put a blurb out there about outside help, you know, and it's, I'm so grateful that I did get that outside help. Um, and also I go back through the book every few years, and then I actually do a thorough fourth step. Like I'm in 10, 11, and 12 all the time, but I actually do go back through this process every few years. And the last time I did a fifth step with my sponsor, God, it was just like the first time. You know, I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, I gotta read her this stuff. Like it's one thing to write it down. And now I'm looking at it and I'm about to have to say it, you know? And I just remember that feeling like, ugh. And you know what? She didn't kick me out the door. Like she was nice. She laughed, you know, she's like, I get it. And that's so healing. That connection. I found out. And the first thing my sponsor says, all right, what didn't you put on the list? How did she know? There was something I didn't write down. So that's a good one. So if you're sponsoring someone, you might try that one. Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, I have written on the side here. We are sick as as our secrets. You know, if we're not completely honest with ourselves, you know, it is guaranteed that we will go back out because we'll be miserable. And then I but if we want to get better, we have to be honest. Um, you know, I've had experiences where sponsees, you know, would do their fourth, fifth step with me, and I could catch like these little like white lies in their, you know, resentments in their inventories. And I'm like, why are you lying to me? I'm just trying to help you, you know, and inevitably, you know, they're just so miserable and then they end up going back out. You know, I hate seeing that in other people, you know, because I've been there and done that for sure. And I just want to like reiterate, you know, just being honest, you know, because you know we sponsors, we're not here to judge and you know criticize and all that. Like you know we've messed up just as bad as you might have, you know, and we're not here to judge. You know, we're just here to help you and so you can recover and you know be happy, joyous, and free. So just you know be honest. Like there's no reason to like lie because that's kind of like the reason why most of us, you know, end up in here, you know, the lying and then just like not facing, you know, our truth of like, you know, why we drank, why we drugged, you know, all of that. So I just like to say, just be honest with me because I'm not here to judge you and I'll still love you the same way, either way, you know. I've been through my own stuff and I do like to touch on that that therapy as well. Like I had to get outside help as well. You know, I've gone through a lot of trauma in my past too, and that just really helped me and it helped me open up and because you know your sponsors can only help you so much. They're not medical professionals, you know, like they can't help you with a sexual trauma or you know an abuse or you know any of that. Like obviously they can you know help you and be there for you when you want to talk about it, but like they can't like heal you like as you know medical professionals can, you know. And I just think that that's very important as well because a lot of us have mental health issues, you know, or emotional issues, you know, so we need to get down to causes and conditions for sure and you know handle that because otherwise we're just going to be miserable still and still living in that trauma and that's just not any where we want to live, you know. We just don't want to keep being in that state, you know, at all times. So that's all I have for that. I'll read the next two paragraphs. All right, we are on page 73 in the middle. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor to the outer world. He presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The consistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside him. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension that makes for more drinking. Yeah, I definitely think that, just, not being honest and still just like living in that torture, state, like we want to live. Some people want to live a double life. They're like, oh well, I'm all happy and recovered, but then on the other side, they're still like dealing with some fear and dealing with some mental health issues and all that. That's because they haven't fully surrendered to God and to getting some outside help. And it's like the characters. Like it's like Two Face. It's like you're living one life and then you're living like the other life, and it's just as miserable as like your other life, where like you're just going to meetings and doing service work and sharing and all that and helping a newcomer. Like I just feel like um it's just like a big nightmare, waiting to happen. And that just ends up like, scaring people, and um they get miserable. So they were like, well, what's the point? Like they just want to get high or drink just to, suppress the feeling. And, it just creates a relapse, and then it just, develops into like a big cycle of mess, So um yeah, that's all I have. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, nothing to add there.
Okay.
Are we at psychologists or did you read that?
Nope.
Okay.
What do you got?
Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but few instances where we've given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chance of recovery. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Though those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand, yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. I like how, it's emphasizing rigorous honesty over and over and over again. And, when I think about how I conduct myself too in my life, I remember early on, I would get to these little decision points in early sobriety, and I would think, how willing would I be to tell people that I did this? And it would help me make a good decision. It really would. And later on, it was more about my relationship. Of course, when the book was written, it's not like we had, any meeting you can go to and get a sponsor, right? So you're trying to find somebody back when the book was written. Now we talk about sponsorship, getting a sponsor, finding somebody that you can tell stuff to. But later when I got my sponsor that I have now, I would just think, oh God, if I do this, I gotta tell her. So I wouldn't do it. I mean, it helps me to be accountable to someone. It keeps me humble. It keeps me honest. I just can't live with it anymore. I literally can't. I'm like, ugh, I just, yeah, I just like how it's, it keeps re-emphasizing that over and over. And then I like how it says that we need to be considerate, you know. I don't run around, and we'll talk about that a whole lot more in the amend step when we talk about 8 and 9. We'll talk about considering others and when to and whom to share, or, you know, all that stuff. So I don't want to go into it now, but go ahead, Emily.
I don't really have too much more to add to that, really. But Yeah, I definitely think that, non-alcoholics don't understand like what we're going through. They just have absolutely no idea. I mean, we could try to talk to them and tell them, but they don't have the mental capacity, to understand that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're like stupid or ignorant or anything, but it's just like they just do not understand the mental, obsession and the physical allergy and all that, and like how our brains are like wired differently. Like, I have some friends that are outside of the program and they just do not understand why I need to go to these meetings every single day and share why I have a drinking problem. They just don't understand, and I could try to like explain to them over and over for like a week straight, and they still just will not understand. And that's okay. I know they're supportive and they still love me, like, but they just will never understand the reason why it's very important for me to stay right on the beam and live this life. Because um like my best friend, for example, like she understands that I need to go to AA and all that, but like she doesn't understand why I have to commit and like take people through the work and do some service work and all that just to stay sober. Like she doesn't understand that, but that's okay. As long as she's there to support me and just love me for who I am, I'm okay with that. But like I just feel like they just do not um understand our way of life, and that's just okay with me because it's exhausting trying to explain to someone why. You know what I mean? It's just like talking to like a brick wall, and they just will still not get it. But it's okay, and I am proud to be who I am. I'm not ashamed of it, for sure. I'll tell anyone if they're struggling with something. Like, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict. Like, and it may help somebody, and I'm completely okay with that, because that is my purpose in life, is to help other people and to give back. Because I've wasted so much of my young life, and drinking and drugging and taking advantage of people and doing wrongs. And so I'm trying to like strive to do better things and like make my amends and give back as much as I can. So um that's all I have for that. You want me to read?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. We're at the bottom 74. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed. Only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve what we are driving at. That he will not try to change our plan, but we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone. When you decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have written an inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. Yeah, our sponsors are ready for us to talk about our lives, and they want to hear it because it may help them, and they can relate, and they can just listen and love us for who we are. And I've learned there's nothing to be really nervous about, because they're not there to judge. They're there to help us. And if we keep like writing it off and procrastinating and sitting on it, then it just may not end well for some of us. I've known some people that sit on fourth and fifth steps, and they just go back out, and it's unfortunate, but that's just it's a life and death thing, that's why it says it's a life and death errand, because our very lives do depend on this, and if we don't let this stuff go, then it just keeps us chained, down to the ground, and we can't like lift this, out of our lives, and we can't um get over it. So that's all I have for that. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
No, I didn't have anything to add.
Okay.
Will you keep reading?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this is the next paragraph of page 75. This is the fifth step promises. We pocket our pride and go to it, eliminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once you have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look in the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we had begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. And then this is right after you do your fourth step. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour.
Wait, can we stop? Can we
Yep,
stop?
yep.
I just want to point out, yeah, put the fifth, if you're noting anything in your book, write down fifth step promises next to this. But I absolutely love the fifth step promises, and I wish we heard them more often, right? Because this is such a beautiful aspect, not only of our 12-step work that we're doing, in the recovery side of the triangle, but this is also the fellowship. This is me sharing with you who I am, what's going on with me, telling the truth, being transparent, letting you know what I've done, so that I can be clear. And I love this, right? Because especially that thing about we can look people in the eye. Where does it say that? Hold on. Where is it? Where is it? I feel we can look the world in the eye. That was something alcohol gave me and then took away from me. At first it gave me this ability to talk to you and not, just look at the ground and be afraid. But then the more I drank and I did things that I felt ashamed of, then I couldn't look you in the eye again. And people would say hi to me, and then I'd think, oh my God, what do they know? What did they see anything? I just feel this sense of dread. So I really love this. I just really love these promises that, that gives it back to me, that I tell you, my deepest, darkest secrets, and you didn't run away. And I remember the very first person I met in AA that I spent some time with, and she told me some stuff she did, and it was worse than what I did, I was like, oh, wow, cool. Like, yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out before we moved on. And I also want to say, we had certain spiritual beliefs that now we begin to have a spiritual experience. And I really love that, because going, hopefully, especially new people are desperate enough to try this. Just try it. Maybe you don't know, like, I'm not really sure about all this, but it really is an experiential like process, because somebody said AA, what is it? Is only understood backwards. Like, you can only look back and say, "Oh, I see why. Oh, yeah, okay." And I still have that experience with things that my sponsor told me 20 years ago. Like, she might have said something to me, and it'll just pop into my head. And I, for literally years, every sentence started with Camille told me, or Camille said, or Camille, I mean, she just gave me she helped me understand and learn these tools. And now today, so many times today, like, just something will pop into my head and I'll be like, oh yeah, she was right. Yep, she was right. Over and over, Um, and I'm having that experience. And the feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. It has disappeared for me. And boy, I'm hopeful that some other things will disappear soon. And walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe, I like to think in pictures, and I love to think about that, to picture that I'm holding hands with my higher power. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry to stop you there.
No,
And
you're
yeah,
good.
after the fifth step, we get to have our quiet hour. Go ahead, Emily.
Yep, you're good. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we had omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skipped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? You have anything to say about that?
Yeah, sitting quietly with yourself and just looking at everything. Hopefully, I mean, when I got done with my fifth step, I felt great. You know, I had a lot more awareness about what I was watching out for. My sponsor helped me see that. But I just love how, going through this, first of all, this is the first time I've ever done a co-chairing a big book study. So it's kind of cool. Like, I mean, I have this experience going through the book with sponsees, but going through it like this, it's really interesting just how many times they emphasize just that this is not a halfway thing. This isn't something that we just kind of do, sort of do. Oh, I need a little bit of this. It really is a fact-finding, fact-facing process so that I can get clear and walk that new path. And I tell you what, I'm having a first step experience in some ways in my life right now, and it's not fun. Um it's a lot of work, but it's okay because I have hope because I understand how this works now, and I want to do the work. I'm definitely coming out of something difficult, and I'm wanting to see how I can live a new way of life in that area of my life also. It's not an AA. So, I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful about this, but I'm not in the part that's fun yet. So yeah, okay. And oh, and my sponsor always would joke and say, we take this book down from the shelf because it's been up there for a while because we probably took a really long time getting our fourth step done. Yeah. Anyway, she likes to point that out. All right, where are we? Oh, we could wrap up now, really, because
Yeah.
we're starting step 6 next. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. I just have something to say. Yeah, I think that steps 1 through 5 for sure are like the foundations of our sobriety. It's just like kind of like building a house. Like you need a concrete foundation, and then you need the walls. You need the nails, the hammers. All that fun stuff to like build up a basic foundation of like a house, and then it's just like we build our recovery, from there. And we all have to start somewhere. So like the first 5 steps for sure, like the basic foundation of our sobriety, and that's just the start. And then we just build from there. And once we get some momentum, then we get over and we start doing our amends and all that fun stuff. And it's just action steps. And we just got to keep pushing through. It's not meant to be easy, otherwise we would have lots of recovered people. But it's definitely a journey and a challenge for sure, and it is worth it. It is painful, but it is definitely worth it. And I know step 1 can definitely be very difficult for some people for sure. But I think um, once newcomers get over the hurdle of steps 4 and 5, um, I think they're on a good side of recovery and all that, because they have let go of a lot of hurtful things in their past and all of that. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But okay, I'll stop the recording and then we'll open it up for shares. Give me 1 second. Oh, there it goes.